Yo, this is Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist, and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Toolbox. And again, I have another power hitter on the other line here, and I am just really thrilled to meet this guy virtually because we've connected and we've done so many things online. And we were just talking before we hit live here on how we feel like we're almost kindred spirits, although I have never met him personally.
Yes, sir.
So Mr. Jason Muhammad is one of the people that whenever I go on to any kind of social media, whether it is Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, I usually see him speaking my language. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how we met. So I just, I'm out here doing what I do, trying to inspire leaders to lead more authentically, lead better, trying to inspire individual contributors to come out from behind themselves and step into their space of greatness. And I go on social media and I hear like the same words coming from someone else. And that starts making me nervous. Does someone have my notes? What's going on here? And so finally, I connect with Mr. Jason Muhammad. And, this guy is absolutely everything. He has really got a heart for leadership. He's doing all the right things. This guy is a certified leadership consultant. He's a life coach. He is an author. He's written a couple of books. Well, his first book is 64 Tips to Get Employed and Stay Employed. And then he's got another book that I'm actually kind of concerned about because he's got a title that I should have thought of. The title of his book is Leadership Is. And you can't get more direct than that. So I'm just really, really excited to have Mr. Jason Muhammad be a part of the Leadership Toolbox, where we try to distill this leadership thing down to those critical elements that every leader, whether you are an aspiring leader or whether you are seasoned in this game, but every leader should have in their toolbox. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Muhammad to the Leadership Toolbox. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Brother Galen. It is always an honor, man, to hear you, to see you. Your spirit is so inspiring and contagious, right? That anyone that is around you or hears you or sees you is going to feel you. So I definitely feel you, man. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, hey, so tell me a little bit before we get into this discussion, because once you or I get to talking about leadership, it's going to be hard to stop us.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
before we get into that, give me a little bit more about your background.
Yes,
What was growing up like? Where did you come from? How did you get to this spot where you are right now?
yes,
And
sir.
work into that. Uh, how did leadership become a passion point for you?
Wow. So me, born and raised in a little town, no bigger than a mansion's living room, uh, called Fort Valley, Georgia, right? A little small place. And we got a little university down there, Fort Valley State University. So was raised a single mother with my sister. And, so growing up, with my mom, watching her, the way that she took care of us, the way that she sacrificed to take care of my sister and I, and making some hard choices that she had to make sure that, we had, and then she sacrificed, not having, and I saw that leadership principle, right? From a young man, from my mother. And so I left from that place but while I was there, talking with the neighborhood children, I always connected with them and they would always ask me questions and advice about stuff.
Hmm.
And I didn't know why. I didn't know why y'all asking me this stuff. But at the same time, I would always respond with something that worked. And so then I left from there and moved to North Carolina. And some of the same similar things were happening. And I moved from there when I met my wife in North Carolina. Then we moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Minneapolis, Minnesota is where um, what you would call professionally the cherry pop, right? So, uh, was working at a school, a charter school, a very progressive charter school there, and just quite naturally, it just was coming out, right? Doing this professional, not professional, but leadership training with the students, leadership training with the staff there, trying to show them ways of how to uh, manage the children, and but no one ever taught me how to do it. It just came out, like a web from a spider. It just came out. So from there, I was sitting in the basement of the school one day, and I was going through some tremendous pain and stress and pressure. And so I was like, man, this is like an elephant, sitting on me. And so I started just studying elephants. And I started looking at the majesty of elephants and the community of elephants and the leadership of elephants. And one day, the CEO's wife had brought in a leadership, not a leadership, a life coach into the city to give life coach courses and certification courses. And so I took those courses. And then I continued to take the life coaching courses through what is called St. Thomas Christian University there in Minneapolis, and got registered as a life coach. So, Galen, here is the evolution of it, right? Here is the evolution of it, is started off from just a life coach, then, evolved into a career coach, and then finally found out what it was through leadership consulting. You see, and so what I've learned is the most important thing, and you know this as being, my my older twin. I'm thinking, but you know this already, right? The most important thing that's written on your tombstone is not your birthday, it's not your expiration date, but it's that dash in the middle. And so it was in 2014 I discovered what that dash was, and I immediately started getting to work trying to develop that dash.
Mm. Wow. That is outstanding. That's powerful, man. It's that dash, man. It's that dash. So you and I have a similarity in that sense that when you were coming up, there seemed to have been this gravity, this gravitational pull that people kept coming to you,
Yeah.
and at some point you would eventually step into the space and you would deliver the goods, and that only fed the fire. So gosh, I don't want to get into this too quick, but I really would love to get your thoughts on, there's this age old discussion around whether leaders are born or whether they're made. And I'd love to get your take on that, because it sounds like you're leaning one way or the other relative to looking at your life. Do you think you were born a leader, or do you think you developed into a leader?
So, I think that I believe in both. I believe that leaders are both born, and I do believe in leaders are made, because there are some that can be made into leaders, right, with the proper skill set and training and psychological training. But then, even that, right, there's a spark that's laying dormant within them, because everyone doesn't choose that. So,
Mm,
those that choose to embrace what they were born to do and allow that development to take place to bring that out of them, they were born leaders, you see. And so, I mean, and I have to look at examples, right? We're not religious or anything like that, but I have to look at someone like Jesus, right? So, who taught Jesus how to be a leader? Who taught any of the prophets how to be leaders? They were born leaders, and they were designed to do a specific work. And so, leaders that you see nowadays, you ask them, why were they leading when they were 3, 4, and 5 years of age on the playground? Who taught them how to do that? Right? That was just born, that was inborn leadership. And so I know some of the greats say, I heard John C. Maxwell say, yeah, he's never met a leader that wasn't born, right? But at the same time, though, it's like you have to look at people. If you put the movie Lord of the Flies, right?
Mm.
How did they begin to organize themselves? Because there was a natural born leader amongst that group of children that raised up. No one taught him that. See, so yeah, I believe leaders are born, and I also believe that leaders can be made.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. I believe, and usually the way I answer that question when it's put to me is, I believe that there are certain elements that you have to have in order to be an effective leader, and
Yes,
some
sir.
of us, if you were to look at all those elements, some of us have those elements naturally.
Yeah.
You still have to develop the other elements, but your
Right.
journey might be a little shorter than
Right.
someone who has none of them.
Right.
And very similar to what you said earlier, I think chief of those elements is you have to have a desire to lead. You have to have there's a different mindset that comes with leading
Right.
people that
That's
is
right.
different than when you are the lone wolf, when
That's
you
right.
are the individual contributor, when you're the superstar.
Right.
You have to have this certain mentality that is, parts of it might be transferable, but
Yes,
it's
sir.
different than the desire that you have to have in order to lead and develop people. So,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
boy, we're jumping into content already.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's okay. So you have to think about it, right? If you go on any playground in America, you're gonna look for three qualities in a leader. First one is that they lead. Second one is they build relationships.
Mm,
The third one is they solve problems. So if you're looking at any little children that's out there on that playground and you see other children around them, so first there's that natural charisma, right? That influence, right?
sure,
That
sure.
takes place that attracts those other children to them, but then you see them migrating and navigating around, them. That's your leader. No one taught that child. That child didn't go through this certification, for leadership, right? No, he or she was born. Now, see, I'm saying this because I see as working with students, every day. There's a couple of students that I see every day that when we're saying, okay, we're going to start doing this program. There's this one in particular. She says, okay, so what we're going to do is what we're going to start doing is, and then we're going to this. Now, what you can do is such. I was like, look at this. I study leadership from children because
Mm,
why? Because they are unhindered with the whole judgmental and judgments of others. They just naturally go for it. And so that's how I would like to be in my leadership, man. Just naturally, just go for
absolutely. Hey, look, I just had a conversation with another friend of mine and brother in this leadership space, and we talked about the importance of courage in
it.
leadership, because there's one thing to know the answer. It's another thing to know the answer and do what you believe to be right. I think many people know. Schools are full of people that know. Books are written by millions of people that know. But the question is, are there people doing? How do you when you look at the different leadership development programs, what's your take on them relative to inspiring leaders to do?
So yeah, I have to look at ones that deal with fear.
Mm,
Zig Ziglar said fear is false evidence appearing real. I say fear is focus everything around results. And so I'm looking at the results that I actually want to achieve. And then I align myself up with the vibration that I feel from that leadership, and you can feel the vibration from, reading words. There's life written, there's energy in the words. So you can feel the energy and that's in the words. That's not nothing spooky about that, right? You can feel it from there. And so if I'm gauging where are they trying to take me, right? Are they trying to make me a better leader or a continuous follower? You see, and so that's what I gauge it after. Am I going to be able to do this? Are you going to ignite not the courage, but the core rage that's within me to go for it, right? To challenge all things that are impossible and make them possible. If you're not going to challenge me to do that and hold me accountable to do that, I really don't want to be bothered.
Fantastic. Man, well, guys, you guys are seeing what I first fell into on social media. And I think I stumbled into one of his live sessions and I was like, dude, we either need to be friends or you need to stop doing that. One or the other. We
No,
can't have
we
we can't have you doing that and us not know each other.
that's
So
right. That's right.
so fantastic. So hey, so the whole point of this video series and this show is to really try to codify leadership down to what are the specific things that leaders need to figure out, they need to develop, they need to put into their toolbox so that if they're facing a situation, they've got some, just as you would with a physical toolbox. If you've got a leaky faucet, you can pull out a wrench to go work on that faucet. If you've got some shingles that are coming up, you can pull out a hammer and go nail that shingle down. Whatever you need, you've got some tools to pull out of your toolbox to be as effective as you possibly can be. What are some tools that you found, whether they're processes, whether they're beliefs, whether they're concepts, that you believe that every leader needs to have in their toolbox in order to be effective at doing whatever it is that they're trying to do?
So one of the tools, right, that I believe that every leader should have, of course, when you're coming from it, it has to be patience. You got to have patience. Now, you got to go meditate. You got to go do some Tony Robbins walking on some rocks. Learning some kind of a way to gain some patience. You got to have some patience. And then number two, which is really important as a leader who owns a company, you got to be able to tell the difference between a high performer and a high potential or an individual contributor, because most times they promote high performers into management
Ooh.
jobs, and then what you end up doing is losing a great performer and gaining a bad manager, right?
Mm,
Because if you look at some of the Gallup statistics and what have you, 31% of new managers say that they received any kind of mentoring, 36% say they received any type of coaching, 39% or so would say that they received any former training. So then, if you look at that side, the other side is people leave the jobs not from the job, but they leave because of the manager, right? And so I think that CEOs need to get a better grip of how to identify the difference between a high performer and a high potential. Once you come up with that type of succession plan, if you will, I think that you can save a lot of money on your bottom line when it comes down to your company, because it's spending, what is it, like $45,000 per person, even more than that, just to train someone. Now, and
mm.
that price goes up as it comes to the level of leadership that that person is going to be in that industry, in that company. So I think that having a tool, I'm about to plug myself here, right? So
Go for it. Go for it.
so I have identified, five indicators, right, that differentiates between the high performer and the high potential employee. If you look at every door in a company, in a building, in a home, there's a latch that's connected to that door, right? And so that latch is what keeps that door open and closed. And so companies have become an open door, a revolving door. So with that latch stands for something. I'm not going to give it all on here, but right now, but latch stands for something, right? And that latch is the five indicators that tell us the difference between a high performer and a high potential employee.
Wow. And that's critical. I mean, to your point, that's critical to make that distinction. One of the first books that I remember reading was this book called The Peter Principle. I think it was written in like 1972 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
but it talks about that very concept that typically the way that we find our leaders is by looking for outstanding individual performers, and then we promote them into a position of leadership, thinking that leadership is just something that you can pick up while you're doing more tangible parts of your job. When in actuality, leadership is a whole nother, that's a whole nother, it calls on a whole nother set of skills.
Right.
And very often the best leaders at times were maybe just adequate individual contributors, right?
Right.
They may not have been incredible individual contributors.
Right.
They may have been adequate. If you look at some of the best sports coaches of all times, yeah, they played the sport, but they weren't the superstars necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But to your point, being able to distinguish between high performers and leaders or leadership potential is critical. I think that's
Galen, I think one of the things too with that, right, is even with management, if management embraces the leadership mindset, because a manager is a leader in their own right. But if a manager embraces the higher calling of leadership, right? Because you got into a management position for a reason. I mean, those that actually had the ambition, right, to be in that position, you got into that position. Now you have the ambition. How are you going to grow that? How are you going to grow that ambition into higher forms of leadership? Well, you got to, at some point, right, really study the mindset of the leader of the company, the CEO of the company, the creator of the company, studying their mindset and fall in love with that mindset, right? So that you can grow your own leadership to stay in tune with what the original leaders and CEOs want to see in the vision of that company.
fantastic. One of the things that I have really started studying is, to your point about the mindset of a leader. And I think about my own experience when I was an individual contributor and I was a role player, I was a salesperson. And
Mm,
my focus then, my mindset then was about the transaction. How do I be successful in this charge that I've been given to sell this particular thing time and
yeah,
time again? And went through the training and to learn the tactics of how to do that. But it wasn't until I made the transition of stop trying to sell to starting trying to create a situation where it was easy for my customers to buy from me.
come on
So
now,
I had
come on.
I had to start thinking about my customer and
That's
their
right.
mindset before I could really start seeing the kinds of results that the organization, quite honestly, was expecting
Yes,
from me the whole time. And I think that the same is true for leaders, that you have people that get into management positions, but they're still focused on what they're trying to achieve.
right,
And how can I make my people do the things that I need them to do so I can achieve?
right,
And when you make the transition into, John Maxwell talks about the fifth level of leadership and that kind of thing. I
right.
don't know that I'm talking about that, but there has to be a transition as to what makes people follow.
Mm,
How can I tap into what would make um, uh, my brother or Robin or Bob or whomever, how can I get the most out of them? And that's a transition that I think leaders have to make in
right,
order to be really successful. And
right.
that's different than trying to make someone do something, because
Yes,
I
sir.
can contend that I can't make anybody do anything.
Yeah,
I've
right.
I've got to figure out what's their trigger,
That's right.
what's important to them.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other tools that you believe are critical for leaders to be aware of, to have in their toolbox, to have some degree of mastery? We talked about distinguishing between high potential individual contributors versus those with potential to lead. Are there any other tools or processes that they should be aware of?
Yep. So if you look at leadership, right, there's two words there, leadership. And then if you say it in a different way, it's lead a ship, right? When you was talking about followers, developing followers. Having followers, right? Every follower is not a friend, because if you look at the African safari, right, gazelles got followers, right? And so if you look at in the grass, right, insects got followers. You understand what I'm saying? So it's really what kind of followers that you actually want to have. And so with that, right, so leaders have to have the mindset of making sure that you have some type of measuring system,
Mm.
that you measure the engagement of your employees, and then you have to have a way of how you scale that engagement up, right? Because a lot of employees are no longer engaged because they don't have the mindset. So in your meetings, you got to have, here's another tool, right? You got to have a meeting format. When
Mm.
you're having meetings, you just can't have a meeting and then just expect for everybody to just talk, say what they're going to say, have the budget meeting and let that go and let that go. I'm telling you, a great source, tool are books, right? Read books. There's people like Patrick Lencioni with the 5 dysfunctions of a team and the ideal team player. There's John C. Maxwell with oh man, everything leadership, right? Leadership 2.0. There are so many local people that are in your communities that you can learn from, but you got to have the mindset. You have to have the mindset, right? That I'm going to grow my leadership from where it is to where it should be, or where I want it to go. You got to have that mindset, because if you stay stuck, right, in this mindset of, well, I have it, this is what we're going to do, this is our product, if you can't. It was Gary Vaynerchuk I heard say what you just said. You got to fall in love with your clients. You got to fall in love with your customers, because if you fall in love with the product, someone can always make a better product.
Cheaper with more
Yeah,
features.
there you go. There you go. So you got to fall in love with your clients. And so how do you do that? You got to have some type of for your employees as well as your clients, a reward system.
Mm.
You got to reward the loyalty, because it's best to reward loyal customers than to have some gimmick for new customers.
Boy, the most valuable customer you have is the customer you have, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so measuring engagement, that's a tool. You got to know how to measure the engagement. Number two is, when you're having meetings, how do you get the best from your employees in a meeting setting, right? You got to have a meeting structure, someone to take notes, someone to be the host, someone to make sure that the flow is going well. So you got to have a meeting structure in there. And I have what is called fear meetings, right? Focus everything around results. And with that, I allow everyone in there to get an opportunity to speak something. And if someone does not speak, I call them out. Say, I want to hear from you too. I want to hear from everyone that's in there, because all these brains that are sitting in there are valuable. Here's another book that I would suggest you read. It's called, well, not you, but people. All of us to read, right, is The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. That book, man, just like really stopped me from a lot of the
Oh
procrastinating
my
and
gosh.
sleep inertia, why procrastination happens. Like, it's just a phenomenal book, right? And it helped me to connect with people like Galen, and other people, like, just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go for it. Just go for it. The time is never right. You just got to make the time
Man, I tell you, now you guys see what I saw. Now you guys see what I saw. Just totally, but I think I was like in the middle of a workout,
right.
and this guy came across my screen, and I'm like, wait, hold up, 1 second here. That's what I'm supposed to be talking about. Who is this dude? And like I said, we either need to be friends or you need to stop saying this stuff, one or the other. We can't have both.
Yes,
So,
sir.
man, I am just so excited to have you on the show. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna go on air right now and on the record right now saying I need to have you back. We This can't be the first time. We need to have another conversation because I'd love to talk to you about reward systems. You've just really gotten into this thing really deep and shared with our audience some really tangible things that they absolutely need to be focused on, that we all need to be focused on. I love the books that you've mentioned. I'm really passionate about the fact that you can get a little bit from everybody,
Yes,
and that's really the juice to anyone being effective in any field is
right.
the fuel that you have to your imagination. How can people get a hold of you if they want to connect and get some of this one-on-one focused against their issues, against their opportunities? I know that you've got your book coming out, and that might be one way, but how can they get a hold of you?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Galen. Before I do that, I gotta say about you, my man. I mean, I'm looking at. See, look, I'm following. I'm following great leadership. I'm looking at you on YouTube. I'm looking at you with the podcast that I'm a subscriber to on iTunes, and I would suggest that anybody that's listening, if you haven't already, subscribe to that because he has some great, wonderful information, man, from some pastors to other people. The guy I was listening to, I think it was yesterday, who was went to Kennedy School and was reading Harvard articles and doing his thing. So, look, man, look. My brother, I'm following. So, but again, I'm not you're not a gazelle, and I'm not a lion. You're a lion, and I'm a lion. I'm just following a greater lion. So, but you can reach me via email at jmleadershipconsulting@gmail.com, or you can call. Well, yeah, my number 612-598-7409. You can hit me up on Facebook, jmleadershipconsulting.com, or Jason A. Muhammad, either one of those. JM Leadership Consulting on Twitter, JM Leadership Consulting on Instagram, the same thing. And I do have a book that's coming out. As a matter of fact, Galen, that book will be here tomorrow.
Oh,
That book,
really?
yes, sir. That book will physically be in my hands tomorrow, and I'm going to be as giddy as a girl with new pigtails. Look, I'm gonna be celebrated. I'm gonna put that thing up on Facebook, man. I'm gonna put it up on everywhere. Saying get your copy, get your copy. It's leadership is 10 principles of success for the first time manager, right? And so it's just some principles. It's not tips. There's a difference between tips and principles. These are principles. These are things that you have to really internalize and build upon as you're receiving your instruction and your bottom line and your details, and here's the results that we want. So here's some principles that will help support that. And so that's me in a nutshell, bro.
Well, fantastic. Well, fantastic. Well, you guys, I am just so thrilled to have had this conversation and to share this with my audience as we try to build a community here. I can't think of a more passionate person that I've come in contact with around this space of leadership. Really, really important to me because I believe that every success and every failure begins and ends with leadership.
Yes,
And if our leaders aren't doing the right thing, there is no chance for an individual contributor to do the right thing.
that's
And this guy is absolutely all over it. I also believe that each of us are designed to be the greatest in the world at something. And therefore, your life's mission is to find your thing so that you can get on with being the greatest in the world. If I can help you in any way, please contact me at www.galenbingham.com. Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to this podcast. Subscribe to this video cast. My passion really is in the area of trying to help people be as successful and as effective as they possibly can as a leader. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Leadership Toolbox. This has been Galen Bingham, the Leadership Strategist. Take care.